Okay. Okay. So we think we're sitting here to discuss these marvelous teachings of coming from the Panchen Lama, but through the blessings of Lama Yeshe. And so that we can develop, so that we can discover our true nature. They're quite the best words, you know. For our sake, and then of course for the sake of others, because we all live interdependently on this planet. Thinking this is why we're here, this couple of days. Listen to what we can, take the advice we can, even if it's a tiny amount, doesn't matter. So we can sing our little prayer. The first two lines are expressing our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings. And the second two lines are expressing this altruistic motivation for being here together, listening. Sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye drobha shog sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye drobha shog Sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chernien gi personam ki drola penche sangye drupa shog. All right. I don't know if we need all the fans on yet. It's not quite hot enough, is it? I mean, it's kind of going to warm up, isn't it? Will it warm up? It will warm up. It will warm up. Then we can put it back on. Yeah. Okay. So on the face of it, what this is a seemingly very simple meditation technique, and that's what it is. It combines, as usual, the two modes of meditation taught. One is known as, you know, the end result of it. They're called in terms of their result. The first one is in Sanskrit, shamatha. In Tibetan, it's shine. In English, we could say calm abiding. There are different translations. And what it's referring to is this subtle state of our mind that's beyond conceptuality, beyond sensory, which of course sounds mystical to us because we don't posit that in the world. For the very simple reason, because that is the most subtle level of our mind, therefore the most capable. So then we have to ask, why do we need to have that level of capability? Why do we have to have that subtlety? What's the purpose of it? I mean, from its own perspective, just from its own point of view, from the point of view of just achieving it, as Lama tells us in the book, the consequences of it are unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's like science fiction. How extraordinary, all it does is show how extraordinary the mind is. You know? But it's just the beginning. The kind of everything else is the bonus, you know, is a bonus. The function of it, the purpose of it, the reason to get single point of concentration is so that you can utilize it in the second mode, which is where the work is done.
So as I've been saying, roughly, in the traditional approach to learning, which is taught in the Lam Rim, and which we understand anyway in our own lives, you learn theories first, then you internalize them, and that's that's when you can use mathematics, be a pianist, be a cook. You listen to the theory, you internalize it, think it through, see the logic of it, internalize it until eventually it's experiential. That's the typical method of using these two modes of meditation. And the second one, and I think we get so confused about this because it's called meditation, we get confused. And then because we hear the term in Tibetan analytical meditation, we make it fancy. We make it more fancy than it is. We're confused by it. But all it is based on concentration to whatever degree you've got it in the first mode. You utilize that in the second mode, where you literally think the information through that you're planning to meditate on. You're planning to familiarize your mind with. It's not complicated. We make it complicated because we have this concept of meditation. It just means you use your thinking. Just exactly. I use the simplest example all the time. You learn something simple at school, maths, 1 + 1 is 2. What you have to do when you get home is you do your homework. And what you're doing, first, it would be best to get some concentration, so you don't get scattered. It's reasonable. Your teacher doesn't tell you that. But that's what you do, be reasonable. You close the door, you tell your siblings to get out of the room. You want to focus. You want to concentrate. That's reasonable. Then you do the proper job, which is get insight into this fact that 1 + 1 is 2. So what is this is the point. The type of meditation, the second one, is called, again, in terms of its result, which is called vipassana, which is called special insight, as Lama calls it. So what is that when you've got it? What is it when you've got it? It's the realization, as the word is, of, in this case, emptiness. But you need to get that insight into impermanence, insight into karma, insight into compassion, insight into all the pieces of the path to enlightenment. Don't think you shouldn't. It's not exclusively emptiness. It's taught in the Lam Rim at the end, which is, in fact, it is insight into emptiness. But this mode of meditating is necessary for the entire path. It's obvious, it goes without saying. So the result is insight. The method to get it is thinking. This is in the first, not the Mahamudra one. That's the point. But the more clear you are about the first one, then you'll know how Mahamudra isn't that. So just like with your 1 + 1, you got a bit of focus, and then now you open your eyes, or whatever you do, it's pretending you learn how to do single point of concentration. Now you've got your facts from school. You bring home your facts from school. And this is a crucial point. And we're going to discuss this today, which is because we're trying to get insight into emptiness, right? That's the point. And indeed in Mahamudra as well. So if you're a highly advanced person, like I said, you go straight to the piano and you intuit Bach pretty good. That's what we're trying to do in Mahamudra. And Lama's getting us, wants us, and Panchen Lama just wants us to simply to focus on the mind, on the nature of the mind, which is itself quite hard to hear. We'll discuss it. But here we're looking at the typical approach. As Panchen Lama says in his text, there are two main ways. One is, and this is my words, get the theory first, then sit down and internalize it in meditation. This other one, Mahamudra, is the opposite. You sit straight in meditation, and then from that comes the experience. From that comes the understanding. So either you hear the theory and then go play Bach, or you go straight to the piano and intuit Bach, which shows actually how difficult it is. Sounds easy. Oh, you mean no theory? Oh, that suits me. But we haven't got a clue what we're doing, So what I'm getting at here, what I'm describing here, is the method of how to realize emptiness, or indeed anything else, using the first method. 1 theories, 2 meditation. So the end result, the name of the first method of meditation, known as single point of concentration or shamatha, that's the end result. It's named in terms of the method is named in terms of the result. That's the end result. The same with the second one. It's called insight. The end result is insight, but the method to get it, the method to get the insight. And that's what, it's so simple, but we can't hear it. It's called by Tibetans analytical meditation. Remember, the word meditation is a Tibetan word gom, which translates as to familiarize. So what you have to do is familiarize your mind. That's what actual meditation is. Concentration meditation isn't actually even properly qualified as meditation. It's training the mind to get focused. But that's, in our world, that's all we think of as meditation. But here's just the method to get your mind to be focused so you can do the actual job of familiarizing your mind with impermanence, karma, compassion, everything. Here, special insight familiarizes your mind with emptiness. So the method you're using with emptiness, you use all the logical, we're going to go through some of this today. All the logics, as Lama Yeshe puts it, all the logical thinking that we need to use conceptually. That's what you work, that's what you do with your mind. Either not just in meditation, but even in just daily life, like right now. We're discussing things conceptually because we live at the conceptual level. We live at that level, so we utilize that level of mind. It's a stepping stone. So the king of logics, as Lama Yeshe puts it, the king of logics to prove emptiness is dependent arising. So we'll use various logical thinkings about dependent arising. That's what you do on your cushion if you're doing the typical method. 1, you get some concentration. 2, you go to the second mode. Now you start using your brain. You start using conceptuality, thinking. So clearly, it's got to be clear thinking, doesn't it? Logical thinking about dependent arising. This and that depends on causes, but you say all the words, you're learning it theoretically. And then what will happen, it's the ideal in your meditation, in your seat, on your seat, in your quiet of your focused mind, get your focus first, which is no conceptual thought. You train your mind to focus. Then you utilize whatever degree you've got of it. And now you go to the second mode, you open your eyes, or you read your notes, or you memorize, if you're a good student, the various things you learned today about dependent arising, and you think it through. You think it through. And then at some point, an aha moment will come. That is an insight, except it's a baby one. The final insights we need, the final insight, actual insight, is at a subtler level. That's why you've got to have Shine first. Beyond conceptual. It's not, they call it non-conceptual. But at a subtler level of your mind. And that, the best we can do is just say those words because we can't imagine it. We don't have an equivalence in modern psychology. I mean, we can say simply, if you're thinking through the thing of 1 + 1 is 2. It's an analogy, but a good example. It's just theory, isn't it? It's just words, theory. And in the beginning, you can't understand it because you're not clear what 1 means. You're not clear what plus means. You're not clear what equals means. You're not clear what 2 means. All these concepts that you have to put together in your mind. And you use methods, don't you? This is how you develop the insight into the fact that 1 + 1 is 2. You can use your blocks. You use your writing. And you work it out. So it means when you've got clear what 1 equals 2, then suddenly the penny drops. And now you're able to understand it. That's all. Understanding. Realization is a level of understanding. But here we're talking about a level that's beyond conceptual, which is, of course, again, like I said, science fiction to us. So it's a process. It's a process. The more powerful your concentration becomes, the more you hear the teachings, the more sophisticated your logical analysis, the subtler the insight, until eventually it is a genuine non-conceptual. And that the first moment when it's that actual non-conceptual, the first moment you're a non-conceptual direct insight into emptiness, that second you have begun to cut the root of all suffering. You can't fall back into samsara. You still got work to go, but that's a massive turning point. This first moment of our direct non-conceptual insight into emptiness. The absence of intrinsic nature. That from that first moment, this is radical. You now climb out of being an ordinary sentient being and you become a superior being, Arya being. And from that moment, you can't fall back. You can even lose bodhicitta. at some point, to a point, I don't know what level, but you can even lose, you cannot lose a genuine, direct, non-conceptual insight into emptiness. And you can only have that once you've got Shine, because it's only at that subtle level of mind that we're capable of that direct insight, that special insight. So slowly, slowly. So in general, you could say then the purpose of meditation, meaning familiarizing your mind, is to familiarize your mind in all the first stages of practice, conventional reality, familiarize your mind with virtue, become completely, oneness with virtue and reality. That's it. That's the path to enlightenment. So first, intellectual. So that's why they talk about, the realizations from listening, the realizations from thinking about, and the realizations from meditation. That's what they mean. So we can see, even just listening. Believe me, even just me speaking, I'm hearing, I'm listening, and sometimes things click, as I say it for myself. So we are using conceptuality. Conceptuality is really artificial cognition. That's so weird to us because we can't imagine any other way of cognizing things besides the sensory in our modern view of the mind. So it sounds pretty abstract to us. When we study Lorig in depth, we learn how in this way of cognizing, which is conceptuality, functions. And it's very, very abstract, very unusual, very extraordinary how the yogis describe it. But it's the stepping stone to the direct insight into everything, impermanence, karma, everything, especially and finally emptiness. So of course, if we're practicing Tantra, then the same two modes of meditation are utilized. The difference is the so-called analytical level that is using visualization. Now that's still conceptuality, even though it's visual. It's still get gross level of mind, imagining this, seeing Tara, certain shape, certain size, holding this, holding that, visualizing light coming. It's a very busy conceptual meditation. It's still conceptuality. But then you eventually, with practice, single point of concentration, and then eventually you'll have actually the realization of the deity, the actual experience. It's the method for becoming oneself, the Buddha, another method. So the first part of Mahamudra, so we just think we've taken refuge, one of the preliminaries. Now we just think, we think of just receiving the blessings from the Buddha to bless our minds, be ready, understanding the necessity for some kind of devotion, so one of the prerequisites Lama talks about. Very simply, we can maybe talk about it more. But the necessity for devotion is kind of important. The relationship with the Guru Buddha. Because the simplest way, I like to say it, is devotion. When your mind is devoted, you say you're devoted to your child, you're devoted to your partner. It means your heart's open. Very simple way of putting it. When we're full of conceptuality and just theory only, the heart is kind of cold, This is why it's so important to have a person embodying the Buddha's qualities for you in your life. Your heart can open. When your heart's open, realizations can come in. It's very clear. So we need that. So, okay, so as Lama explains the first method of meditation, which is exactly the same as we all know if we've done little techniques like watching the breath or something, or perhaps we've visualized focusing on the image of the Buddha. So the typical object of concentration in concentration meditation is something physical or something conceptual, something like a visualization, or something physical like the breath, because the breath is physical. But here, the object of concentration is, in the first level of meditation, is called the clarity of the mind. That's said to be the conventional nature of the mind. So the clarity doesn't mean when we say clear thinking. Clarity simply is referring to the fact of its non-physicality. Sometimes they would say luminosity. Sounds very nice. But it means the non-physicality. So it's a bit abstract. Lama talks about this. We need to find Lama's holy words to bless our minds. Well, no, okay, first we have to establish what the mind is. Yes, let's do that. As Lama talks about that in one of the chapters. I've got it here in the course notes. If we're going to be focusing on the mind, which is the first step of the meditation, we need to know what the mind is. I mean, this is, we talk all the time about the mind. Let's use some of Lama's holy words. Okay, Lama says, so he says, normally we meditate on Buddha's image or on the breath or on other things. But in Mahamudra meditation, we contemplate our own mind, our consciousness. These words are used synonymously. In the West, when we say consciousness, we give it kind of like a higher meaning. But these words are exactly the same, referring to our capacity for cognition. That's it. It's not a holy word. Mind has its capacity for cognition. And within that, it has different emotional components. We can see that we've got the neurotic, deluded, negative ones, right? That's your mind. That's your consciousness. Your anger, your rage, your love, your compassion, your wisdom. They're all components of your mind, consciousness. What are its characteristics? So from the Buddhist point of view, consciousness or mind has no substantial physical characteristics, has no color or no form. You can say it's like space. They use that analogy, In Tibetan, we call it like clear light nature. Selshigripa means clear and aware, to know, clear awareness. So the definition of something is very important. It tells you what it is. So the definition of anything, you can say it has two parts. So the first part tells you its conventional characteristics, and the second part tells you its job, its function, as they say. So the definition of a mug is a flat-bottom clay container. The second part is, what does it do? It holds your tea. Flat-bottom clay container tells you its conventional characteristics. What its job is, it holds the tea. Two parts. Mind, the first part is that which is clear, meaning not physical. That's its conventional characteristic. The second part is that which cognizes or that which knows. Clear and knowing is the way they say the definition, very, very, very short. Clear and knowing. That which knows, that which cognizes, that which is aware. These are all synonyms for the job of the mind. Again, it's not holy. It's not sort of a special holy feeling, aware. We think of it that way, The way the Buddhists use it is simply the name of the job of the mind, the job, the function of the mind, what the mind does, Everything that exists is defined like this. It's conventional characteristics and then its function. Have to establish that first before you begin to discuss something, So that's what the Buddha is referring to as the mind, which is pretty abstract. As His Holiness the Lama says, I remember in one teaching, we can say those words very nicely. We can learn incredible, sophisticated concepts about the mind, there's no doubt. But to actually experience this non-physical energy is very abstract. It's very subtle. It's only when we're highly advanced, we can actually begin to experience one's own mind, this subtler level directly. So we can see we've got conceptuality, conceptuality, which is thoughts about things, thoughts about things, thoughts about things. And then we have sensory. This is already, I use this example all the time, but it's very powerful. It really shows us how we're living in la-la land in our conceptuality. It really shows us how their thoughts are made up by us. So I always use the example, we've got, when you study the epistemological model of the mind, you learn about how the mind functions. And then the psychological model, you learn about what it contains and how they work. So there's two ways the mind functions, basically. One way of putting it. One is mental consciousness, which is all the thoughts and feelings and emotions and unconscious and subconscious. And when you got Shine and, you know, all of that, direct perception, all of that's mental consciousness. That's where the workshop is, as Lama Zopa says. Then you've got sensory. Now, we in our world kind of think of it all as all physical, because we don't posit anything that isn't the body, do we? We posit brains and DNA and genes. It's all only physical. We don't posit such a thing as a non-physical capacity for cognition. We don't posit that at all in modern science. These days, more and more, discussing with the Buddhists, particularly His Holiness, people are beginning to question these assumptions, which is wonderful. When I was working on Lama Zopa's book about death, I read at the same time a book by an American journalist, medical journalist called Dick Tracy, and it's called The Undead. It's not about zombies. It's all about the conflict and problems. He's a medical journalist that is existing in the world of getting organs. You know, he was quite cynical about it. So how the industry itself is a bit arrogant, but you know, whatever. That's another discussion. But basically, there's a lot of conflict now. He's only using the American medical profession about exactly when death does occur, which means what is consciousness, you know? Like all the experiences people have when they're totally unconscious on the operating table of seeing exactly what's going on. People, even as he joked about, one woman had she had to have such a radical procedure that to make had to sort of stop all the main functions. And they said from their point of view, there's no way in the universe she could have any awareness at all. Well, she reported the most vivid out-of-body experiences on the operating table. So no one can argue with that. When she told them directly what they were saying, what they were talking about, you can't argue with that. So one doctor in this business, he said, I can now say with certainty, consciousness is not a function of the brain. Don't know what it is, but that I can say. So this is brilliant that people are questioning. So we've got the sensory consciousness. And as Lama Yeshe says, we make the body the boss. Look at us. I mean, even though we're good Buddhists, you know, we still totally identify with oneself as the body. We don't think of anything else, but this is me. It's so absolutely dominating for us. We know that. And that means our sensory experiences are totally dominant. We can see that. They run our lives. Totally, we can see that. So to then begin to posit this idea that your thoughts and feelings and emotions are not physical experiences. Your eye consciousness is not physical. Your eye, in the Vajrayana, you've got gross consciousness, gross mind, which is your sensory consciousness, which means that part of your mind that functions through your eyeball, which is physical, and the nerves, to have a cognition of shape and color. Your eyeball doesn't cognize things. Physical is just physical, but when it's imbued with a consciousness, with your mind, then it functions, you know. That's the Buddhist way of saying it. So we make the body the boss. We're dominated, obviously, because it's the grossest level of our being. We're totally aware of our body day and night. And our happiness and suffering is determined by mostly our experiences of our body, you know. We think about it 24 hours a day. And of course, we think it is literally me. It is literally me. We think that. That's why, as Lama Zopa says, at the time of death, attachment is the main cause of suffering at the time of death, and attachment to this, because we assume it's me, you know. It's huge, and we can be forgiven for thinking this. I mean, look at this, you know. So that when you study the way mind works, there's the mental, the way the mind, there's the sensory consciousness, and then mental consciousness. I do this a little example all the time, but we really need to think about this because it's very powerful. It really shows us how our mental consciousness is just made up stuff, you know. And it proves emptiness. So I use the same example every time. If I look at that thermos, I will tell you it's a very nicely designed thermos. That's why I chose it, you know. So I looked online and I flicked through all the pictures of thermoses, you know, and that was the one that appealed to me. So I bought it. So of course, we assume, don't we, that my eyes are seeing a nicely designed thermos. That's reasonable. When we hear music, wow, listen to that music, we say. So we assume it's between us that you're seeing a nicely designed thermos. You're hearing amazing music. We say that. We don't question, and we never question it. So of course, neuroscientists look at it in a certain way. Well, this is the Buddha's way of looking at it. And it's it should be very humbling to us. So the five senses, when you learn about the mind, you learn their functions. So eye consciousness, so the senses in general are profoundly limited in their capacity for cognition. The grossest level of cognition. Eye consciousness can only cognize two things, shape and color. Eye consciousness can only cognize two things, shape and color. So immediately you've got to ask the question, well, you have to ask the question, what part of my mind is cognizing nicely designed thermos? Well, that's your mental consciousness. That's where the workshop is. And so what's happening, quite literally, my eyes go here, then within a millisecond, you know, I'll say, there's a nicely designed thermos. So what's happened is, and I mean it sincerely, quicker than Google. Lama Yeshe says in the concentration chapter that the mind is more brilliant than the best computers you could ever imagine. And they mean it very sincerely in terms of its capacity. So astonishing, you know. And Lama says when you got concentration, it's as if you can count every atom of the universe. The mind is so brilliant, so clear, way beyond what we can even imagine. So quicker than Google, my mental consciousness is accessed. And within that millisecond, I will bring up in my mind all my memories. So for example, memory is very fascinating because the Buddhist view is nothing ever goes astray. Everything we ever seen, done, tasted, touched, smelled, and thought about since beginningless time is stored in our memory. It can't go away. It can't go away. So as we progress spiritually and expanding our consciousness, getting Shine, our mind becomes insanely capable. That's why you can remember the past and the future. That's why you can see the past and the future of others. All of this is capable of being cognized as far as this Buddhist view of the mind is concerned. It's absolutely astonishing. Of course, the only reason you want to do this is so you can help sentient beings. You need clairvoyance so you can see how to properly help sentient beings. All this is a function of mental consciousness. So up will come all my thoughts, my memories, even just based on this life, what I've decided I like, what shape and color I like, all these thousands of ideas and thoughts, that's all there accessible. And within a second, I'll tell you, that's a nicely designed thermos. So that is a conceptual thought. This is so clear, it's so evident. And it's nothing to do with that shape and color. It's so evident. This is enough to get us to realize emptiness, I think. So we experience the entire world every second. All the things we experience through our senses, every second, we then conceptualize about them. We make up stories about them. It proves emptiness. It proves emptiness. That's why emptiness. That's why there's no intrinsic thermos there. There can't be. It's a word we just decided. We called it. There's no inherent anything there. There is shape and there is color, but we give it the flavor. And then, of course, we have deluded thoughts. And this beautiful, handsome Fred, because he adores me and he looks divine to me. And then he cheats on me. Now he looks evil to me. There's all thoughts in your head made up. It's so clear. I mean, we should be mortified how silly we are. We're highly sophisticated in our capacity for cognition, for conceptuality. We live at this level of conceptuality, and we are geniuses, utterly brilliant geniuses at conceptuality. It's clear. So it's just knowledge about things. There's no, the way they talk in Buddhism, there's no direct awareness of something. It's indirect, just about something. Very fascinating, that. So then we better learn. So Buddha's deal is this, that our mental consciousness is full of lots of things, thousands upon millions of concepts, including all the emotional ones. So to hear that anger is a concept is a joke to us. To hear that compassion is a concept, but it literally is that. But it's mixed because they're deep in our bones. It's mixed with this a lot of emotional component. Because it's very programmed. So when anger, let's say, is very strong in your mind, a habit, you've programmed a habit. You've programmed your mind in the habit of anger. So anger is defined as a concept, a thought that exaggerates the bad qualities of something. Attachment is a thought that exaggerates the nice qualities of something. That's the bare bones definitions of those thoughts. And then from intense habit of practice over lifetimes, they are now totally instinctive. We've got them down to perfection. But they come down to being conceptual thoughts. This is when we can know this way that Buddhism talks about the mind, we now understand what practice means. Because we're so addicted to our feelings, emotions, as some special component. We think thoughts are rather secondary. Emotions are rooted. They're the grosser experience of thoughts. They're the emotional ones. That's why Buddha calls them the anger, depression, anxiety, jealousy. All those are the emotional afflictions, the emotional delusions, because we practice them for so long and they're spontaneous. We see that we're totally programmed in them, which is why it's so hard to change them. So, and also, as I always point out in our culture, our tragedy is because we don't pay attention to our thoughts. We're always only paying attention to the world out there. Then we only notice that anger is in the mind when you're vomiting it out and abusing somebody, or your body is shaking. This is the tragedy in our culture. We don't have techniques to notice our mind before it becomes emotional. That's the skill Buddha's giving us. It's our system. You only go to a therapist when you're having serious problems. Just necessarily. Because we assume you only have problems when it's serious. But the Buddha says we've got them all in our mind already, and they've all been programmed in there for countless lifetimes. But we only notice them when they're emotional. We only notice you can't get out, when you're depressed when you can't get out of bed one morning. You only notice your anger when the words are vomiting out the mouth. This is our tragedy. And they're all conceptuality. When we get this, it's quite a revelation, I tell you. This is the Buddha's model of the mind. So to start noticing our thoughts. Thousands a second, So we need concentration. So as Lama says, so consciousness, this is a lovely way of talking. Consciousness, mind, perceives things like a mirror does. It's a really good way to talk. Again, this is very specific to Buddhism, but it's so delicious. So they refer to the subject. Subject is meaning the mind, and then there's object. And by definition, every millisecond of cognition, subject, by definition, always is cognizing an object. Object meaning a thing that's cognized, not meaning something physical. So necessarily mind, every millisecond, is cognizing something. Even the subtlest level of mind in single point of concentration is cognizing something at a subtle level, that's all. So mind's like a mirror. This is a really nice way of putting it, in the way we just talked before about all the concepts that make up things, you know. So the mind is like a mirror. And as Lama says, you know, what does he say? Oh. So if a mirror is not clear, it reflects. A mirror reflects, isn't it? So if the mirror is not clearly, whatever's reflected in it will appear not clear. It's obvious. So the Buddha's saying our mind is a mirror, and everything out there, as Lama says to us, everything out there is appearing back to us in the mirror of our mind, according to what's in our mind. So clearly, if your mirror is kind of covered in anger, it's obvious how everything will appear back to you. We know that. We can prove this. Although it's so shocking because we think the boyfriend really is ugly. But it's anger in my mind that's causing the boyfriend to appear back to me as ugly. And it all happens so quickly. We understand this, and when we start to understand this, then we understand the Buddha's view of the mind. Then we know how we can change it. Then we know how we can get enlightened. So whatever's in your mind, whatever's prevailing there, things will appear differently. So if you're a loving person, very patient person, loving and patient and kind, you're not stupid. You can see anger out there. You can see violence out there. You're not ignorant. But your mind perceives it, experiences it so differently. It'll appear to you differently because the mirror of your mind is mixed with love and compassion. Got to understand that. But this is the toughest part to understand. This is getting to emptiness. That whatever is in our mind impacts upon how things appear to us. But we don't ever think that, because if this ugly, mean person, you know, who's doing something wrong to us, we describe that person very precisely. He did this and he did that and he said this and he said that and he did this. And he might have said and done those things, but the way he's appearing to us is through our own anger and our own resentment. But we don't factor that in. We never factor that in. We just think what we're seeing is objective truth. This is the shocking part. The mind is a mirror. Amazing. So the Buddha's deal is, as Lama says, this is what's incredible about the Buddha's analysis of the mind. This is utterly unique to the Buddha. It's shocking to us. And even though we might have heard it as Buddhists 1,000 times, it's still shocking to hear it. But all these negative concepts, we say, okay, within the fact, first the epistemological model, we've got sensory and mental. When the sensory, you've got the eye conscious, ear conscious, these dumb, very limited capacity for cognition. And then the millisecond you hear that sound, you then embellish it with all the stories. Beautiful music, ugly music, this music, that music. Everything is like that. So then now we go to the mental consciousness, and we have to see how it functions. And that's the psychological model. And as we've talked 1,000 times, we can say our mind is consisting of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of thoughts. Conceptuality, thoughts about things, thoughts about things. So we can divide all those into 3 categories. Those that are negative, distorted, embellishments, neurotic, utterly fear-based, utterly I-based, absolutely the cause of our pain, because they are causing the outside world to appear in the mirror of our mind, distorted by anger, distorted by attachment, distorted by jealousy, distorted by self-centeredness, distorted by unhappiness and depression. That's the point. We never factor our own mind in, you know. We think we're this innocent victim, and there's the cake looking delicious, begging me to eat it. We're an innocent victim, and there's that mean, ugly bloke doing what he's doing. We don't understand dependent arising at all. We don't factor our role in it, our way our mind is working at all. When we can, that's being a Buddhist. It's a revelation. That's the beginning of understanding emptiness, I tell you. And all this way of defining the mind is already telling us that. The mind is the main thing. As Lama Yeshe says, Lama Zopa says, and it's so shocking, every time I say it, it's so shocking, but it's true. The vast majority of all humans on the planet have absolutely no idea that what goes on in their mind plays any role whatsoever in their lives. That's exactly the point. This is very shocking. We should be embarrassed at how self-centered we are. So we have the mental conscious and all the conceptual level. So we've got all the concepts and all the negative, neurotic, deluded, I-based, unhappy, suffering ones that causes so much pain, causes to harm others. And then you have the valid ones. There are saving grace, love, compassion, intelligence, kindness, goodness, forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. These are amazing. These still finally aren't completely correct. That's the interesting point. They're at least more valid than attachment and anger. Because when you've got compassion for another person, you still have the feeling that a self-existent I have self-existent compassion for self-existent person. There's still a sense of separateness because you haven't realized emptiness yet, but it's a stepping stone in terms of validity. The virtuous states of mind are valid, not in a moralistic sense, valid because they're more related to dependent arising. Whereas the delusions, there's no sense of dependent arising. There's a sense of concrete, solid, separate me, rude, ugly, mean you. Separate, utterly separate, no sense of dependent arising. So they're kind of wacky. The virtues are getting one step closer. They're valid because they're related to dependent arising. They're not fully developed yet because we haven't realized emptiness. But they're valid because they're connected to others. And they're a reasonable assessment of somebody. They're still conceptual, but they're moving in the right direction. Then you've got all these mechanicals, like I call them mechanical parts of our mind, that are necessary to function as a proper person. Intention, attention, discrimination, recognition, or what are they called? So many of these. And they are, including the one called feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. There's a big shock to surprise us. And this is vital to understand if we want to understand how we experience attachment. There's this component in there within the category called neutral that I call the mechanical parts. There's one called feeling, which is not equivalent to emotion. It's either pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, or neutral feeling. And they're neither negative nor positive, but they're functioning every millisecond. And this is because we're hungry for happy feelings, then this is why we get into such a mess, because attachment drives us to grasp at the thing that seems to trigger happy feelings. We assume it's the main cause of our happiness, so we keep doing it. And that's what tips us right down back into the lower realms. So we have to understand these parts of our mind. You can't be a Buddhist if you don't understand these parts of your mind, because being a Buddhist means being your own therapist. You have to understand the nuts and bolts of your own mind. Brilliant Buddhist view of the mind. Studied in depth over the centuries. Incredible literature about the mind. So okay, let's look at what happens even when we start to do concentration, meditation. Let's look at the bits that are working. Because everything that exists, this is dependent arising now, everything that exists is made up of many bits and pieces. Everything that exists is made up of lots and bits and pieces. So it's really helpful to know all the bits and pieces that will be involved in you learning to concentrate on even the breath. Doesn't matter what you're concentrating on. So let's look at that. It's very helpful. Because our problem is we say, I am watching the breath. I can't concentrate. I have got a crazy mind. We're so obsessed with that word I, we confuse ourselves. It's so helpful the way the Tibetans do it, and maybe it's from India as well. They talk about the states of mind almost, they say, well, anger does this, and jealousy does that, and love has this function. Each of those has their own particular, it's better than I, I kind of gets in the way, it's confusing. So let's look at this carefully. Lama doesn't talk about this. This is I find it very helpful. So we say, I'm watching the breath. Okay, no, sorry, I'm holding a thermos. So you look with your eyes over here, and without any analysis, you can see that's a fact. You know the definition of a thermos, you know the definition of I, you can hear the sound coming out of the mouth over this side. You say straight away, she's correct. She's holding a thermos. Now let's analyze. Which part of this eye is holding the thermos? Because it's thousands of parts. Well, clearly it's the right hand, isn't it? You can see that. Be specific now. So which part of the right hand is holding the thermos? Well, you can see the thumb does that, and the index finger is, each piece is doing its job. You can see that. And all together, they function together as my hand holding the thermos. And then this all works together in the bits and pieces to function that the eye is holding my thermos. So you home in on the details. So it's very good to do that with the mind that's watching the breath, because we keep, we go on about I am watching the breath. And then we talk about I'm watching my mind. And all this big question we ask is, well, which part of, how can the eye be watching the eye? We get all kind of twisted in our knickers, What do we say in England? What do we say that one? Something like that. Knickers in a twist, that's right. Americans wouldn't understand that. I'll say it next time and I'll explain it. Your knickers in a twist. You can't explain it, can you? It has no meaning. Okay, so let's look at this now, people. Okay, it's very helpful. So you've got all the mechanical bits, right? They're the ones doing their job right now. If you've got lots of anger and jealousy and attachment, you can't do concentration meditation because you're going completely thrown out the window. You're hopeless. That's why we can't concentrate. So the parts of our mind that we're trying to train, this is the point. The parts of our mind we're trying to train are all these bits: intention, attention, discrimination, mindfulness, vigilance. They're the bits we're trying to train to do their job properly. What's getting in the way is berserk attachment that is never stopping thinking, your anger about your boyfriend, or or getting distracted, like then just now she turns it on, we all get distracted automatically. Do you understand? So we're trying to train these mechanical bits. That's it. They're not virtues. They're not virtues. They're not virtuous. That's a specific character. But you utilize them based upon bodhicitta, the wish to make your mind totally flexible, totally clear, totally brilliant, so you can be useful and benefit others. That's the reason you're doing it. But in their nature, you've got to understand this point about these different parts of the mind. They're not virtuous in their nature. We utilize them. So let's look at what's involved in watching. I am watching my breath. So right there, first of all, which part of I am watching my breath? Well, obviously, it's the mind that's watching the breath. Body can't do that. Body doesn't meditate. The mind meditates. And again, because we're so addicted to our bodies, because people can sit down very nicely and feel nice, feel comfortable for 20 minutes, they think they had a good meditation. No, that's called feeling nice. That is not meditation. You've got to be so clear. We're so addicted to this feeling of being relaxed and comfortable that we equate that with a good meditation. No, relaxation is not meditation. We need relaxation. We're all berserk, but it ain't meditation, people. It's super clear to know these things. So, okay, your mind is watching the breath. Now, let's be more precise, please. Anger's job is not to look at the breath. That's ridiculous. Attachment's job is not to look at the breath. Love's job is not to look at the breath. Intelligence's job, no, is not to look at the breath. Jealousy's job, no, it's not to look at the breath. So which part looks at the breath? Well, it's the part called attention. 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 You pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. You're paying attention. So it needs to be supported because there's no concentration. It's like a little flimsy baby fitting from pillar to post, like a little birdie, There's no stability. You could say like that. So you've got to use mindfulness. So mindfulness, we've got so many ridiculous names for it. It's that's another technical part of your mind that's really, Lama calls it, they often call it memory. When you're making that cake and you get distracted, you need proper mindfulness. It's a part of your mind that grabs your attention back onto the job. So the training is that. That's the training. And it's really hard work. Because we're addicted to uncontrolled thinking. Uncontrolled thinking. We've allowed it to run rampant for eons, And attachment is the main energy that drives it. Then there's anger and worries and fears, all the rubbish in the mind. We can see that. So this is why it's hard to stay on the object. So then you've got to learn to do that by exercising this mindfulness, this kind of that's watching, I mean, the other thing is they say every millisecond, these are all working. There's always, every millisecond, there's always intention. Every millisecond, there's always attention. Every millisecond, there's a group of called 5 always present states of mind. So they're all there together, but you can look at the function of each is slightly different, and they're all doing their work. Each of my fingers all does their job in particular, but they all work together, don't they? Same with these parts of our mind. You can't separate one bit from another insofar as they're all doing their bit that support each other, you know? Same with your parts of your mind. So stop saying, I am watching my breath. You think there's a piece in there called I. That's a problem. No, there's not. There's a piece called attention, intention, discrimination, mindfulness, recognition, whatever they call, all the bits and pieces. You know? So we're training them. That's it. You're training. Concentration meditation is training. It's not holy, you know, not like that. Remember, it's training. To stay focused. And then slowly, because you're not buying into every thought that comes, when you really start to get serious, you know, because you're not buying into the thoughts, your mind goes more subtle, they calm down. It's logical. You have to understand the process and be very patient. But just sitting there passively for 20 minutes, feeling good, is absolutely bizarre and is not meditation. It's very proactive, be very conscious, grabbing, you know, checking and knowing where you're at. So like the Lamas would say, if you really already got a bit of concentration, but you're over adjusting, you're going to get all agitated. Because the 2 main problems in meditation, the first mode, and they talk about this in the text, and Lama talks about, the 2 main obstacles is, one, the mind being out of control. They call it excited, never stopping chatting. That's clear. You rush off the object, don't you? The other obstacle, because the second we close our eyes and get comfortable, the other obstacle is become sleeping. They call it dull. These are and in fact, in the 9 stages of concentration meditation, described in detail, it's all described in terms of conquering excitement and conquering dullness. Even to the quite subtle level, these are going to be the obstacles. And when you've completely conquered effortlessly these 2, you have got effortless concentration. You can go straight there, you know. So it's a really intricate, detailed, disciplined, rigorous, precise job to be done. We just think it's sitting there and spacing out, you know. That won't get you anywhere except more dullness. So the different parts of your mind all working together to watch the breath. And in this case, watch the mind, which we'll discuss. So I think I'd like you to ask me some questions before we have our morning tea break. Yeah, so come on. Discussion, please. Talks, questions about what we've discussed. Precisely, if you can. We'll go one step at a time. Anybody on Zoom? Yes. Yes, Cyril. Unmute, sweetheart. Can't hear you though. I can't hear Cyril.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me, dear Venerable?
I hear you now. Yes, good. Go.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I would have some question relating to the relation between the mind and the brain. The mind being non-physical and the brain being physical, and what is happening, for example, in the cases.
What is the what, Cyril? What is the what?
What is for example, in the case of illnesses, what is the cause? Is the cause is the mind, or maybe
Cyril, the brain, we can see that body and mind in general are inextricably linked. That's clear, isn't it? You can't have I consciousness, which is mind, without an eyeball. You can't have one without the other. So the modern world is expert at the thing called a brain, which is the physical. So, the Indian system of understanding the body, similar to the Vajrayana system of understanding the body, and the Tibetan medical system, is a completely different discussion. And there's no mention of the brain. It's another whole world of discussion, but equally valid because it's another level of physicality. So they describe the intimate relationship between body and mind, but they don't discuss the brain. So we, in the latest modern world, now are expert at this thing called a brain. So obviously, if the body goes wrong, if your eyeball gets stabbed, You can't have a proper cognition of the eyes. If your nose is blocked, you can't smell things. That's obvious. The mind and the body are both involved. So mental consciousness, the same. So if you use the brain as the physical part that you're talking about, then if the piece of the brain is cut out, obviously the part of your consciousness that depends upon that to function nicely won't be able to work. So it's either one or the other. Do you understand? You don't sound satisfied. What's your problem? Cyril?
Yes, I understand. Yes.
You have a question from that?
No, it's okay.
It's okay?
Yes.
For now. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank
Who
you.
else? Thank you so much. Who else? Who else has a question?
I have one. Hello.
Yes, sweetheart. Good.
Hi.
Talk to me.
Okay, so we were talking about the I and how there isn't an
Well,
I.
we really haven't even gone into that. Yet,
Oh, okay.
Haven't even begun. This is where we're going to get to. This is
Okay.
leading to this. I just mentioned that in passing right there, but let's ask that question.
All right.
What I said.
We might be coming to it then.
But go on. I certainly will, but go on.
So we were talking about watching the mind and how I is not watching the mind. It's the attention
Well, no, okay.
on the mind.
The
Is that
eye is watching the mind.
okay?
Okay, look at this one. Look at this one. Look at this one. My hand is holding the thermos, isn't it?
Yeah.
You understand? Now break the hand into its component parts. What have you got? Thumb, index, middle, ring, and little. They're the 5 pieces of the hand, would you agree, plus the palm?
Yeah.
Do you notice that there's, I just said the parts of the hand, the parts of the hand are the thumb and the fingers.
Yeah.
So the parts of the eye are the mind and the body. But when we say I, when you say my hand is what is holding the cup, we want another piece besides the fingers. We want kind of an inherent little hand in there, bossy little hand running it as well. That's what I'm saying. That's the part about emptiness, and we're going to get to it.
Okay.
All right? Will that do?
That will do for
the whole
now.
point of all this is to get to that. All right?
Great.
Okay, darling. Yes, someone else. Someone else. Where are we? Yeah? Go, sweetheart. Who's then? Nobody. Okay. Go. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
I just have a question in relation to the objects that we use for shamatha.
Bit closer to the mic.
Yep. I've got a question in relation to the objects that we use for concentration.
Yeah.
Yep. So we can either use a breath, which is non-conceptual. It requires very little brain activity. Yeah.
I don't know about that, but never mind. Tell
Okay.
me
So
more.
so we focus on the breath, which is it's a non-conceptual.
Well, it's a physical phenomenon.
It's a physical.
It's physical.
Yep.
It's either physical or mind. So it's a physical object.
Yep.
The mind of Mahamudra we're going to get to is we're going to be focusing on the mind itself.
Okay. Or we can also use a visualization, a Buddha.
Anything we
in
want.
front.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
with the Buddha, it's very conceptual. There's lots of brain activity. You generate the image. You focus on the qualities of the Buddha.
Right.
So it just seems to be very different techniques, even though the end result is the same.
No, the end result's not the same. What do you mean by end result's the same?
To achieve this deep level of concentration.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Vajrayana one is specifically related to using the image of the Buddha in whatever practice you're doing as your object of concentration. But there's way more to it than that as well. It's a method of becoming a Buddha. And they're said to be even a more powerful object because of the qualities of a Buddha. There's something powerful there, but it's not merely just to get concentration. It's combined with many other practices in the Vajrayana. Do you understand?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also the point about this one, the point about the breath, it's still physical. So at some point when breath stops, then you're stuck. You stay at a gross level. Whereas mind goes, that's not a problem. So breath finally it's a good starting point, but mind is way more subtle, and because it's not physical, and that enables you to get to very subtle concentration. Do you understand? Good. Okay. Someone else? No. Someone on there, is it?
There is, it's on here.
Okay,
It's on
good.
chat.
Okay,
So a
good.
question from Ewan. It seems like there's no hand, but there are fingers and a palm, and there is no self, but there are the laws of nature.
Well,
Is
no,
that
there's no
right?
self, but there are parts. There are no, the first part of your statement sounds great. There's a hand that has parts, but if you analyze the hand, you're not going to find anything but the parts. There is a self, but it's got parts too, and you won't find a self among those parts. That's a valid way. Laws of nature is something just different. That's another discussion.
Okay.
Whoever was asking that.
Yeah.
So the key thing about the emptiness one, which we're going to get to.
I've got a question as well.
Okay, go.
If that's all right.
Yeah, please.
So sometimes I can catch myself when I'm feeling frustrated or angry with something. I can stop it to a point, but I always then not quite sure what to do with it once I've noticed it. So I can intellectually, I can go, yeah, I'm thinking there's a permanent person there. I'm thinking I'm permanent, but then I kind of don't know what to do next.
I understand, darling. That's a good question, Chrissy. This is the point. This is, in day-to-day life. And this is really applying insight in a simple sense in day-to-day life, at the kitchen sink and in the car, rather than only thinking you must do it on the cushion. So on the cushion, now in daily life, you've got some concentration. You've developed some awareness now because you've been practicing concentration. So in the daily life, in the car, at the center with hubby, you're stepping back and you're watching your own thoughts, which is really brilliant, isn't it? You're observing. So you observe the anger. So when you understand that anger is an exaggeration of that person's qualities, that's what frustration is. Frustration is just a polite word for mild anger. And then when you realize, especially, that it's based on attachment, which is what I want. When I don't get what I want, that's what aversion is. If you know that analysis, then there's a multitude of arguments to have with yourself. So the most direct one is to recognize that anger is over-exaggerating his bad qualities. And then you realize why. It's because your attachment only wants what you want. So that already is a profound analysis. And that's what you do with it. You recognize a load of rubbish concepts. You just argue with them. That the exaggeration of ugly him is not true. And then you even go behind that and you realize it's only because I'm not getting what I want. So shut up, Christy. Okay, give it a break. Do you see my point? That's a powerful analysis based on the understanding of what attachment and aversion are. Another argument is permanent. Another argument is compassion. I'll be kind to him. Another argument is emptiness. You use whichever one in your toolkit you want. You get my point? That's what you do with it, not just sit on it. That's suppression.
Right, that's great.
Or denial. In our culture, we think there's denial or vomit. We don't have anything more nuanced than that. But this is analysis. This is literally utilizing analysis to get an insight into, yes, this is true, Chrissy. There's no reason to be angry. How ridiculous. That's exactly the analysis, using insight, but in your daily life. And that's being your own therapist, as Lama Yeshe said. Right. Using logic to argue with these ridiculous concepts. But are concepts, and are emotional concepts, and that are exaggerated concepts, all based on what you want. So we should be kind of mortified, and we'll quickly fix it when we realize that. That's the analysis. But you won't say that analysis if you don't know that attachment is a concept that wants only what I want. And you won't do that if you don't know that anger is a concept which is based on attachment not getting what it wants. That's a profound analysis. Can you hear me? You apply that. You look puzzled.
No, I'm puzzled in the fact that I can do that in the moment.
Oh, sorry, but no, wait a minute. No, stop. You just said before, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
But now you're just saying you can
yes,
do
that's
it.
true.
So which one are you saying? It's a very precise thing I'm talking about.
I can catch it.
That's the
that
first
I'm
step.
Doing it.
That's what, I beg your pardon?
And then I can argue with myself.
No, Chrissy, I'm sorry. How you just said I didn't. This is not trying to be. Here, watch it carefully. You just said I didn't know what to do with it. What did you mean by that?
What I mean is that once I become aware of it, and I'm watching it,
the anger,
and then I do the argument of
stop now, Chrissy. Which argument? There are dozens. Which precisely are you saying? Because you just said I didn't know what to do with it. So now you're saying you do know. I mean, what I just said, did you ever use that argument before or not? Because you only will know that if you've studied the mind, Chrissy. It doesn't come out of the blue.
No, I do know what to do with it. You're right. I do know, and I will then look and see what's happening with my own mind, and am I associating something that's permanent?
No, that's nothing what I said whatsoever.
No, sorry.
I said none of that, Chrissy. I don't think you heard. What I said sounds nice. We don't get it. You can't hear it.
Right. Say it again. Sorry.
See, this is, no, I'm not, don't be sorry. This is the point. There's a dozen arguments. So you first, look, sweetheart, if you're playing the piano and you notice, because you've been practicing, that you just played a wrong note, what you're saying is, I don't know what to do now.
Mm.
So what do you think you have to learn to know what to do now to fix the problem? Be very precise now. What is your next step? You're just saying, I don't know what to do. I've just discovered I've played the wrong note and I don't know what to do with it. You said that is perfect. So what do you think you should learn to know in order to know what to do with it, to fix the problem? This is exactly precise discussion.
Observe.
Observe what?
The mind.
What the holy God in heaven will it help you observing the fact that you played a wrong note? If you don't know how to fix the wrong note, if you don't know what a right note means. Can you hear me, darling?
Mm.
So what would you do? Now, this is a really serious question. I know it sounds hilarious, but when you answer it, you understand my point. What would you do to discover how to fix the wrong note? How to play the right note? How would you learn? What would you need to know to learn?
Well, I guess for me, it's through
No,
study
not
and
for me.
practice.
I don't care about you. This is talking technically about music. It's a really good analogy. What would you have to know to do with a wrong note if you're playing the piano? You're trying to play Bach. You're wanting to play Bach, and you're training yourself. What would you have to do to fix the note?
Well, I'd learn with a teacher.
Yeah, and you've got your teacher. She's not at home today. And what's on your piano? What's in front of you? What's written on those pieces of paper in front of you?
Keep practicing until
No,
I
what's
get
on
it
the piece
right.
of paper on the piano in front of you? You're playing the piano.
Yeah, the instructions, notes.
No, those notes, isn't it?
Yeah,
So you
notes.
lift your eyes. You just played a wrong note. You know that because you've heard it before. And you check to see what the right note is. Do you hear me?
Yes.
And you'll play it. And you'll practice that. So that's what you have to do here. You see, we look into our minds, and because you've got some familiarity with what anger is, because you're a nice person and you want to change it, but you don't know really. All of us don't know what anger really is. We don't know what it's coming from. We don't know the analysis of it. We haven't learned Buddha's view of the mind. We don't know how to analyze it. You just said that.
Yes.
So what Buddha's saying is, anger, frustration is a mild version of it, is a conceptual thought that is exaggerating the bad qualities of your hubby or the driver in front of you. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? It's saying he did this, how dare he do this? So then you have to that's one analysis. So anger, that's what it is. You felt the emotional component of it, but it's a thought in your mind beneath the emotion that is exaggerating his badness. That's a distorted concept. It's your over exaggeration. So if another analysis is, well, where does it come from in me? Why do I have that? Because guess what, sweetie, you've got attachment underneath the anger, and attachment is a junkie in you that only wants everything to be the way you want it. So when you know even just that analysis, you understand exactly what's going on. You understand how you've just played these wrong notes. So you want to adjust it. You want to make the right note. So the right note is that analysis. Anger is an exaggerated view of this person. They didn't do what I wanted. And look at this, Chrissy, it's really ridiculous, because now I can see that beneath the anger is my attachment, this little junkie in me that only wants what I want. So I'm pretty self-centered. So then by even just that argument, you're calming it down. Are we communicating a little bit now?
Yes.
Or not? That's one fundamental, essential, right there argument. Another one is you're seeing a permanent person. But that's another discussion. That's another whole analysis. But this is the most direct one when it comes to what the mind is and what it's doing. Most direct antidote to those negative thoughts. Are we communicating a bit now? Or does it still sound abstract?
No, it sounds fine. Thank you.
But do you understand what I mean by you have to know how to fix it? You said, I didn't know what to do with it.
Yes. I guess because I can observe it and have some detachment from it, but then at another stage it'll bubble back up again, the same kind of an argument, the same frustration.
And what do you have to do to make it to understand? So in other words, you have to understand how to analyze it.
Yes.
But based on what I just gave you was Buddha's analysis of it. It's the same with your garden. You've got enough knowledge to know that maybe that's a weed and you're confusing it. But if you don't know botany, how will you know what to pull out of the garden? You can say you observe it. You can say you can be distant from it. That's not helpful. That's a good start. But then you have to know to analyze it and know with certainty it's a weed so you can pull it out and put the flower there instead. So you have to know what anger is. You have to know where it comes from. In this little analysis I just did, which sounds simple. And you maybe have heard it 1,000 times, but the penny doesn't drop. This is how you conquer anger. One step at a time. And then one day, because you programmed your mind, it won't bubble up again. But if you just watch it and just, oh, I'm watching it, that's not enough. You've got to pull it out. But you have to know what it is and why it causes suffering. It's a conceptual state of mind that we're totally programmed in, and it is the result of attachment not getting what it wants. And attachment is the primordial delusion that runs the entirety of samsara. And attachment is this greedy little vampire that's never satisfied, always wants something more, always thinks everybody should do what I want. It's very self-centered, totally embarrassingly self-centered. And it's hungry and emotional and neurotic and possessive and needy and manipulative. It's very multifaceted, but it's there all the time. And anger is the response when it doesn't get what it wants. It's a very simple way of putting it, but it's kind of profound. So you argue with that. Give it a break, Christy. It's just my annoyance because this guy dares, this person is daring not to do what I want. Do you understand? That's an analysis. So then they immediately brings you to be more patient and kind, because that's the opposite. You're already playing the right note. And then you make a vow. That's why you do 4 opponent powers. And then you make a vow then, I'm going to catch it like a hawk, I'm going to change it. Not just watch it. That's the first step. Then you can do the analysis. That's what cuts it out. Are we communicating?
Yes, thank you.
That's why we have to study the mind.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Buddha's view of the mind, not Jung. You can study Jung too if you like. Do you understand?
Thank you.
Good point. So good point. Absolutely. Another question. We can have a tea break. Yes. Where? Yes, please, sweetheart. Go. Yeah. Good, darling. Go. Say it again. So what?
Okay. So my non-Buddhist training mind
Okay, good.
would associate, therefore, attachment with ego.
Absolutely.
So that would be
It's
the same
exactly
thing.
correct, the Buddhist
Thank
way.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was getting confused about exactly what you meant by attachment.
Oh, I know, because it's a different use of the word.
Yeah.
Now, so then good, we'll go into that. Attachment for the Buddha. Well, we'll just a bit of it. We'll do that now, actually. Now, you see this analysis of the Buddhas. They've got these 3 different categories in this big soup inside here. We've got love and kindness and patience and generosity. And we know that if they're prevailing, we feel kind of okay. We feel nice and people look nice to us. But as soon as we get this, the unhappy ones, they're kind of constricted and tight. And attachment's a key one. And the Buddha doesn't mean by that the way we use it, like bonding with people and being kind. It's sort of like, it's like a junkie in us that's very frantic, that's based in I, that's very needy and very fragile and only can cope with getting what it wants. Only can cope with getting things that are nice. It can't cope with problems. And the Buddha talks about it as very primordial. It's very primordial. And so we can see it. We can hear that loud and clear. That's what he means by attachment. It causes us to feel I've never got enough, always hankering for more, never feeling I'm good enough. It can become self-hate, if it's strong enough, but it's never, and it can be manifesting in either a very personal way, like you're attached to food. You're always rushing off to food, but you might be a kind person, or it could be attached to always getting what you want and harming other people. So there's all different ways it manifests, but it's kind of the fundamental one underneath all the others, they say. It's emotional hunger, neurotic, based on I, needy, therefore manipulates to get what it wants. Do you understand? Therefore, it's all the chatting mind as well. All the way we call in the West OCD and AD, or scattered mind. That's all attachment mind, berserk, out of control, out of control, out of control. Do you understand? Have a cup of tea, have a tea break. 20 minutes, 25 minutes, go buy a bun or something, and a cup of tea or a cafe latte or whatever, isn't it? Yeah, come back about 20 minutes. That's good enough. Yeah. See you in 20 minutes, folks. Thank you, sweethearts.